Hey guys, so I just wanted to make this video to show, basically to demonstrate this crucial step that you can't skip. This is one of many crucial steps, but this is my favorite one to demonstrate because it shocked me the most when I first did it. You can see the pumps are completely submerged in hydraulic oil, and I'm sure you guys have seen other videos where people are assembling these things completely submerged and you think, oh, well, I got all the air out. Or other videos where they have it assembled and then they're filling it through the rotary shaft bore before installing the shaft seal. Well, here's no vacuum applied to this thing. Watch what happens when I turn it on. So it'll do this for about 6 hours. And all of these bubbles that you're seeing are basically microscopic bubbles that are trapped within the pump that are expanding under vacuum. So that's why it looks like there's so much in there. The opposite happens when you compress it. Like if there was a bubble inside of here and I pressurized this tank, the bubble would shrink. So the opposite is happening under vacuum. So I do this because these pumps rely on hydraulic actuation to make pressure. So any air that you have in there is going to do two things. So number one, it causes cavitation. And you hear how it's leaking? There's a really, really small crack on there. So it damages these piston bellows. When those piston bellows crack, the pump's done. You got to source another pump basically to get these. And number two, you can see the air that's trapped inside of the bellows. You'll never be able to get that out just by submerging the pump. That same goes for the inside of these bellows. You can't get all that air trapped out of there. So you'll have to excuse my makeshift camera tripod here. So to sort of go over how these things work, you have your piston caps, your piston bellows, and these are the O-rings that fail, by the way. These are the Teflon coated nitrile butyl rubber O-rings. Let me see if I have one. Well, this is a prime example of that Teflon coating failing on these O-rings. So anyway, these pumps rely on hydraulic actuation to work. Well, what does that mean? Well, you have a cavity that is separated. It's enclosed cavity, which is basically this housing. There's hydraulic fluid inside of there, and then inside of here you have your swash plate. The swash plate has, you can see it like wobbles around as it spins. So as it's spinning, you get this kind of thing that happens on it, to where every time the low side comes over one of the plungers, it pushes it down. It forces hydraulic fluid inside of this piston bellow, which causes it to expand out. When it expands out, into these chambers. So you have your low pressure pump, which is basically force feeding in through these one-way check valves, which allow fuel to come into the chamber via one of the two ports inside of each bore, but not back out. So when that piston bellow squeezes in there, it's ramping up the pressure. The pressure becomes greater than what's being fed into it, so these shut off. And then the fuel only has one place to go. You can see there's one hole There's one hole on that side, one hole on that side. So it has no other place to go except out. That's why I call these things fuel pressure multipliers and not a fuel pump, because they actually cannot pump any fuel on their own. Even if you had fuel that was basically right up to it, it can't start pumping fluid on its own. It has to be force fed from the low pressure pump in your tank. So that's sort of going over how they work. And the point of that is basically any air that's inside of this pump, it's going to hurt your performance, because it'll act like air in your brake line or air in a clutch line. It'll make it spongy, and it won't make this thing expand out as far when the plunger comes down and pushes on it. Another reason, or another thing I kind of want to go over, is my choice of fluid. I use DTE 24 on newer pumps, and I use DTE 25 on older, more high mileage pumps. The reason for that, the DTE 25 is a little bit thicker than the DTE 24. CHF 11S looks good on paper, but for scientific reasons I won't get into too much. It thins out a lot more under heat, and the DTE 24 has a better additive package that's better suited to something that's essentially never going to be serviced, unlike power steering, which you do have a service interval on it. But another important thing is the film strength between this plunger cap and the swash plate. The actual film of oil on here, the thicker it is, the better of a seal it's going to make. So you don't get some that's, you know, basically spitting out through the sides, and also between the clearance of here. When that pushes down, you'll have less that squirts out the sides, basically. So basically all you really have to know, simply put, it doesn't thin out as much at the temperatures that the pump sees, because it's attached directly to the engine. Even when it's not attached directly to the engine and I'm pressure testing these on my pressure test rig, it gets really fucking hot. So going into my choice of O-rings, the FKM has a lot better temperature resistance. It has better abrasion resistance, though it's kind of irrelevant in this case, because these don't move, like this part isn't moving up and down or anything. It's just essentially solidly down in there and then locked in with that. So when these O-rings fail, basically you have fuel from this side of the pump that squeezes past and gets into the hydraulic section. The other main failure I see is simply the pumps get too low on fluid. That's mostly because it just seeps past the shaft seal. Like, you can't make a 100% seal when you have, you know, something that's spinning inside of it like that. Like, it's just never 100% gonna seal. So it's a really, really, really slow leak over the years, basically. What else is there to cover? These diaphragms, they're essentially just pressed in like that. So I like to put new retaining compound. I knock them out, I put new retaining compound, and then I let it cure. I also put some JB weld between here to hold it on, so that, you know, that shouldn't pop out, because I've had a few during my trial and error days pop out. I also put retaining compound for the new shaft seal. I'm also using FKM on the shaft seal because, again, they have better chemical resistance, better heat resistance, and the abrasion resistance is important here because, you know, you have spinny friction stuff going on. What else is there to cover? I'm also adding stakes in here, and then I'll apply some JB weld around the perimeter so that, like, the JB weld sort of has something to bite into, and that also prevents these from popping out. A big mistake I see for people attempting to rebuild their own pumps is this diaphragm. It has two jobs. Number one is to have a constant positive pressure because you can see that it has a channel that runs from the diaphragm through to the hydraulic cavity. So it's basically maintaining a positive pressure inside of this hydraulic section, so that you might have a really slow leak that takes years to happen for the fluid to leak out and get pressed out, but you don't get air ingress. So that's the point of that. But also, number two, people don't realize when they put vacuum on this and pull the diaphragm all the way back, well, you have no room for thermal expansion anymore when the fluid heats up. So I only pull my diaphragms to about 90% of their maximum travel, so that I have 10% left. So if you think about the spring in the diaphragm getting pushed down, well, if you're pushing it down all the way, it can't get pushed down anymore. But if you push it down to about 90% of its full, well, when it heats up, it has a little more give, a little more squeeze to account for that expansion and contraction of the fluid. Probably should have also mentioned that you have to be really meticulous when you're disassembling these things. A lot of times, I like to just take my compressed air and then basically and pop those out. If they're more stubborn, I have a special socket that I've ground down that fits perfectly in here, and I just give it a light tap, you know, like a really light tap, and then it'll pop out. And that, you know, I'm trying to avoid marring up where these two surfaces meet too, because that's another place where you could have hydraulic fluid leak past and in between. So they have to be, you know, carefully disassembled. Make sure not to drop these things. Don't fuck them up. Do not fuck them up. And then these I won't put, like any of these parts, I don't put in the ultrasonic cleaner. The swash plate, I take that out. The only thing that goes in the ultrasonic cleaner is the rotary head and the pump body itself. And then I do that for about 15 minutes, and it turns a rusty piece of shit into essentially brand new pimpin' looking pump. You do not want contaminants inside of your hydraulic fluid. So after I take these out, you have to blow them out really well. You got to get the water and shit out of there. You want to blow this out really well. You want to blow that out really well. I take some of this parts cleaner and degreaser, spray that out, you know, spray everything out, spray it out inside of here, blow compressed air through here, blow it through here, blow it in there. Repeat with the brake clean, and just do it a bunch of times until milky shit stops coming out. And then I'll basically just hose these parts down with the brake clean only. And yeah, that's pretty much how it's done. But this whole process, you know, it takes a while, and it's finicky, and you have to have the degassing chamber. You have to have an ultrasonic cleaner. I mean, I guess you might be able to get by with not doing it, but you don't want dirt and shit inside of here. You don't want to have any contaminants that can potentially shorten the lifespan of your pump. So in a nutshell, guys, that's how it's done, and that's what you're paying me to do, and deal with if I ever have to warranty it again. But you know, it's more complicated than just some fucking O-rings and, you know, throwing it back together. Like, I've seen other people, they'll rebuild them, they have limited success. Some people have more luck than others, not degassing it or anything, but in my opinion, it's a crucial step. It makes sense to do. You know, this whole time I've been talking, it's still bubbling. It'll bubble like that for 6 hours, like I said. So, yeah.